Marcus Aurelius and other Stoic philosophers placed a strong emphasis on the virtues of virtue and moral purity. The following 10 actions are ones that Stoicism forbids respecting. Dishonesty. Being dishonest is seen in Stoic philosophy as a basic betrayal of integrity and virtue. Living in harmony with reason and nature, which involves telling the truth in all of your dealings, is highly valued in Stoicism. Honesty, according to Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and other Stoic philosophers, is necessary to preserve harmony both inside oneself and with others. Being dishonest damages the social fabric that supports Stoic principles and erodes trust. According to Stoic philosophy, leading an open and truthful life promotes inner peace and sincere relationships with other people. On the other hand, lying ruins relationships and causes internal strife, which eventually results in moral degradation. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius considers the value of honesty in forming a person's moral compass and character. He urges people to maintain honesty as the cornerstone of moral behavior and counsels against engaging in dishonest activities. For Stoics, being truthful means living a genuine and real life in all spheres. It goes beyond simply not telling lies. Essentially, lying is incompatible with Stoic ideals since it thwarts the quest of knowledge, morality, and eudaimonia, flourishing. According to Stoicism, maintaining moral excellence and living in harmony with nature are the paths to true fulfillment, of which being honest is a necessary part. Thus, honesty is seen in the Stoic perspective as both a moral need and a means of achieving true happiness and inner serenity. Malignant intent. Malicious intents are seen to be incompatible with the core values of Stoicism, which include courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance. Living according to reason and nature or treating people with kindness, justice, and charity is a key component of Stoicism. People who have bad intentions and try to hurt or control other people for their own benefit or gratification are viewed as operating against these fundamental values. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers denounced deeds motivated by malice, seeing them as products of moral decay and internal strife. They held that engaging in such conduct undermines one's moral fiber and inner peace in addition to doing harm to others. According to Stoicism, eudaimonia, or flourishing, and true fulfillment arise from leading a life of virtue and moral integrity, which calls for abstaining from bad deeds and fostering kindness toward everyone. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius considers how crucial it is to treat people fairly and compassionately, despite hardship. He places a strong emphasis on how intertwined humanity is and how important it is to act in ways that advance the well-being of everybody. People who follow Stoic ethics are forced to rise above their baser instincts and appetites in favor of virtuous deeds and the greater good. In the end, Stoicism teaches that malevolent intents compromise one's own well-being and inner peace in addition to being in opposition to the values of virtue. People can have fulfilling and morally excellent lives by practicing kindness, empathy, and goodwill toward others. This helps them connect with the lofty values of Stoicism. Absence of self-control. According to Stoic philosophy, one of the biggest obstacles to leading a moral and satisfying life is a lack of self-control. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on controlling one's impulses and desires in order to live in accordance with morality and reason rather than giving in to whimsy or transient feelings. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers understood that developing self-control is necessary to upholding moral integrity, inner peace, and perseverance in the face of hardship. The Stoics held that practicing disciplined control over one's ideas, emotions, and behaviors is the path to ultimate freedom. Those who lack self-control frequently find themselves at the mercy of other people's situations as well as their own impulses, which can cause moral weakness and internal turmoil. A condition of inner peace and liberation from the oppression of unreasonable cravings can be attained, according to Stoicism, via the practice of moderation and discipline. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius often considers the value of restraint as a means of achieving virtue and eudaimonia, flourishing. He warns against letting passions control one's actions and exhorts people to develop composure under pressure, even in the face of provocation or temptation. Stoic techniques like mindfulness, introspection, and virtue contemplation are used to develop self-control and promote a life lived rationally. Furthermore, Stoicism teaches that exercising self-control is about directing one's resources toward honorable goals and moral endeavors rather than suppressing or repressing oneself. A life of moral excellence and inner tranquility, per the precepts of Stoic philosophy, can be attained by persons who practice restraint over fleeting pleasures and instant gratification. Haughtiness. Arrogance is viewed in Stoic philosophy as a negative personality trait that contradicts the core values of self-awareness and humility. According to Stoicism, real wisdom entails accepting one's limits as well as the intrinsic value and dignity of every human being. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers saw arrogance as an expression of egoism and ignorance that causes conflict both between oneself and other people. An exaggerated sense of self-importance and an unfounded notion of one's place in the universe are the roots of arrogance. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on how interconnected all people are and how important it is to treat people with empathy and respect. Arrogant persons frequently don't value other people's opinions and contributions and don't acknowledge the fundamental worth and humanity of every individual. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius discusses the value of humility and the perils of hubris. He cautions against being influenced by conceit and exhorts people to develop a humble and introspective mindset. Stoic techniques, including thinking about the universe and the transience of life, are used to calm the ego and promote humility and wonder at the immensity of existence. Furthermore, Stoicism emphasizes that moral purity and good deeds are the genuine markers of grandeur, not praises or accomplishments from the outside world. People can develop real connections with others and make great contributions to the common good by being self-aware and humble. Contrarily, arrogance impedes one's advancement toward knowledge and eudaimonia, flourishing, according to Stoic philosophy, and causes moral stagnation and isolation. Brutality. According to Stoic philosophy, cruelty is a serious moral sin that violates the key precepts of justice, compassion, and virtue. Stoicism emphasizes the value of treating people with kindness, empathy, and justice, and teaches that every person has intrinsic worth and dignity. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers denounced cruelty, emphasizing its harmful consequences for both the offender and the sufferer. They did this by characterizing cruelty as an expression of moral ignorance and spiritual corruption. Inflicting pain or suffering on someone else without thinking about their welfare or dignity is considered cruelty. According to Stoicism, engaging in such activity compromises one's moral integrity and inner peace in addition to transgressing the ideals of justice and kindness. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius considers the significance of empathy and compassion in directing one's behavior and relationships with others. He exhorts people to develop a spirit of mutual regard and connectivity, acknowledging the humanity that all living things have in common. True strength, according to Stoicism, is found in exhibiting self-control and compassion even amid hardship, rather than in controlling other people. People can align themselves with the noble values of Stoic philosophy and help cultivate a more equitable and harmonious society by engaging in acts of kindness and empathy. On the other side, cruelty feeds conflict and misery, which continues a vicious cycle of violence and moral decline. Furthermore, Stoicism emphasizes the value of reflection and self-awareness in resisting negative urges and fostering moral greatness. People can seek to live per reason and morality by transcending their baser instincts via self-discipline and reflection. Those who practice Stoicism aim to create a society where all beings grow, there is harmony and respect for one another by rejecting cruelty and embracing compassion. Inequity. According to Stoic philosophy, injustice is seen as a basic transgression of the moral integrity, justice, and virtue precepts. Living in conformity with reason and natural law, which involves treating people fairly, respectfully, and empathetically, is emphasized by Stoicism. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers understood that injustice threatens not only the well-being of the affected people, but also the stability and peace of society as a whole. When someone is treated unfairly, or has their rights and liberties violated, it is called injustice. This is frequently the result of ignorance, avarice, or self-interest. According to Stoicism, everyone has the right to be treated fairly and with respect because they are all endowed with innate dignity and value. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius considers the value of maintaining fairness as the cornerstone of moral behavior. He exhorts people to behave honorably and morally despite pressure or temptation to conduct otherwise. According to Stoicism, leading a life of virtue and moral excellence, which demands a dedication to justice and fairness in all relationships, is the path to true happiness and contentment. People can help create a society that is more just and equitable by engaging in empathy practices and making an effort to comprehend the viewpoints of others. On the other hand, injustice fosters animosity, strife, and moral decline, which eventually causes social ties to break down and trust to evaporate. Furthermore, Stoicism highlights the significance of acting to right wrongs and lessen the suffering of the harmed. The goal of Stoicism is to establish a society that values compassion, equality, and respect for one another via advocacy, activism, and social change. According to the insight of the ancient philosopher, Stoicism provides a framework for creating a more just and peaceful society by rejecting injustice and preserving the values of virtue. Absence of empathy. A lack of empathy is seen in Stoic philosophy as a moral knowledge deficit that prevents one from reaching eudaimonia or thriving. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on the interdependence of all creatures and the value of showing kindness, empathy, and understanding to others. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers understood that empathy was necessary to create peaceful relationships and advance the common good. Lack of empathy is the incapacity or reluctance to comprehend and relate to the emotions and experiences of others. According to Stoicism, empathy is a normal manifestation of human virtue that results from an understanding of our common humanity and our shared ability for both happiness and pain. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius considers the significance of compassion in directing one's behavior and relationships with others. Despite differences or conflicts, he exhorts people to develop a sense of kinship and solidarity with all beings. Empathy is not only a moral obligation but also a means of achieving personal development and fulfillment, according to Stoicism. People who practice empathy become more understanding, tolerant, and humble, which strengthens their relationships with others and improves their well-being in the process. On the other hand, the lack of empathy undermines one's capacity to lead a morally bankrupt and fulfilling life by causing apathy, alienation, and moral stagnation. Furthermore, self-awareness and introspection are critical to developing empathy and compassion, according to Stoicism. Through introspection on personal experiences and vulnerabilities, people can cultivate a more profound understanding of others' experiences and endeavor to mitigate suffering whenever feasible. Stoics strive to uphold the values of virtue and reason by fostering a more understanding, sympathetic, and caring world via deeds of kindness and charity. Self-centeredness. Selfishness is viewed in Stoic philosophy as a moral deficiency that prevents one from pursuing virtue and eudaimonia or flourishing. Living in harmony with nature and reason, which involves putting the good of the community above personal interests and desires, is emphasized by Stoicism. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers saw selfishness as an expression of spiritual blindness and moral ignorance that breeds conflict both inside and externally. Excessive attention to one's own needs, wants, and interests at the detriment of others is referred to as selfishness. According to Stoicism, leading a life of virtue and moral excellence, which calls for a dedication to benevolence, empathy, and compassion, is the way to true happiness and fulfillment. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius discusses the significance of realizing that all beings are interconnected and the duty to favorably impact others' well-being. He exhorts people to rise beyond their egotistical tendencies and work toward leading lives that are in balance with the greater good. According to Stoicism, the path to genuine greatness is the development of moral integrity, wisdom, and virtue rather than the acquisition of riches, power, or prestige. People can align themselves with the noble values of Stoic philosophy and help to create a more just and harmonious society by engaging in acts of generosity, kindness, and selflessness. On the flip side, selfishness undermines one's own well-being and inner peace by causing loneliness, unhappiness, and moral degradation. Lack of awareness of virtue. Ignorance of virtue is considered in Stoic philosophy to be a severe form of spiritual blindness that prevents one from achieving eudaimonia or flourishing. Stoicism emphasizes the value of living per reason and moral excellence, holding virtue to be the highest good. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and other Stoic philosophers understood that ignorance of virtue results from a failure to comprehend one's nature and the core ideas of Stoic ethics. Ignorance of virtue entails disdaining the values of justice, compassion, and integrity in addition to failing to acknowledge the intrinsic dignity and worth of every person. According to Stoicism, developing virtues like wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice leads to true happiness and fulfillment and necessitates dedication to moral reflection, self-awareness, and introspection. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius discusses the significance of realizing the intrinsic worth of virtue and the imperative of conducting oneself in a way that upholds moral excellence. According to Stoicism, a lack of knowledge about virtue causes moral stagnation and spiritual impoverishment, which in turn makes it more difficult to lead a meaningful life. People can rise beyond ignorance and find inner peace and fulfillment by adopting the tenets of Stoic ethics and aiming for moral perfection. Stoics want to develop a better awareness of who they are and where they fit in the world via introspection, meditation, and the practice of virtue. This will hopefully result in increased wisdom, compassion, and integrity. Cowardice. According to Stoic philosophy, being cowardly is not living up to the virtue of courage, which is the cardinal virtue. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on meeting obstacles head-on with courage, resiliency, and an unwavering dedication to moral values. The fear of discomfort, uncertainty, or failure is the root cause of cowardice, according to Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and other Stoic philosophers. Cowardice eventually makes it difficult to lead a morally upright life. Cowardice is avoiding scary or challenging situations rather than facing them head-on with bravery and determination. According to Stoicism, real strength is the capacity to act bravely in the face of fear rather than the lack of it. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius discusses the value of facing hardship with composure and tenacity. He exhorts people to develop a resilient and determined mindset in the face of life's obstacles. Furthermore, Stoicism highlights the need to confront one's fears and welcome discomfort as a chance for development and self-discovery. According to the insight of the ancient philosophers, people can transcend their limitations and lead lives of moral perfection and fulfillment by facing problems with courage and resolution. Stoicism promotes devotion to virtuous conduct and cultivates a community of moral integrity and mutual respect by identifying and not respecting those who engage in these practices.